I'm Dr. Rudy Cashman. Wellness is my gig, as you know from my previous TV shows and lectures, that I'm a big advocate of prevention of chronic diseases. And today's subject is about marijuana. Why would I pick such a subject? Because it's sort of spreading across the country. They're changing the laws all the time. And most of us, frankly, just like health really, don't know enough about it. And that's the reason I've given my other lectures on how to keep you well, what to eat, how to exercise, how to reduce stress. These are all subjects. You can go on YouTube. I think I have 77 old shows on there to get yourself educated. And I've got about 16 books on Amazon all about wellness. So I appreciate you watching this. And it's really what I love. I'm a physician. Physician means teacher. I'm trying to teach. This is a very interesting subject today. A lot of the information, frankly, I got out of this book here, Understanding Marijuana, by Mitch Earleywine. Worth reading. I think he's a pretty neutral person. Uses largely scientific evidence. And I think it's really worthwhile. And a lot of my information came from that. So let's go on this trip together here. This is going to be very interesting. Let's be open-minded. I'm not the final opinion. I'm just trying to get some information out there to get you to read more before we get too involved with something like that, so you know what you're doing. The marijuana plant has been around for thousands of years. They think about 8,000 years. Actually, it's been cultivated. The word marijuana it comes from a Mexican term, and translated it means good smoke. I didn't say that it was, okay, but that's what they called it. That's the word marijuana came from that. But there's certain. Let's sort of begin with a little bit of a summary in the beginning, and then we'll define it further. What are the unsaleable points? I mean, what are things that people generally don't argue about? Because both sides of the issue, straight across the country, okay? So I'm trying to be as neutral as possible, scientific as possible. What are the unassailable points? It's about 10,000 years old, the plant, so that's interesting. Medical applications, although they're not huge, go back 4,500 years. So long time it's been used in some form. Recreational use has been around for thousands of years. The Romans were using it. It was before the birth of Christ, people were using it, okay? It's the most popular illicit drug in the world. It's the most popular illicit drug in the world. By illicit, we mean it's illegal in many countries. And a good 100 million people have tried it alone in this country. You know, maybe once, maybe twice, some, daily. Maybe 10% develop problems from it. So not everyone gets a problem. It depends on how long you use it, how much you use it. But it's not problem-free. Don't ever think it's problem-free. Many use it in combination with other illicit drugs. There'll be smoking cigarettes. There'll be alcohol, cocaine, narcotic medications, also marijuana. So it's sometimes tough to mine out what's the real information because they're using many drugs. So about 1 in 10 who try it end up using it regularly. Many of those who want to get rid of the habit, dependency, or addiction, it can do all three. It can be a habit, you can become dependent on it, you become addicted to it. Many respond to therapy, but some don't. Many fix themselves, they just quit. But a significant number end up needing therapy, psychologists, psychiatrists, hospitalization on occasion. When you become intoxicated with it, what effects does it have? It varies from person to person. One person may have no effect, another person may feel more relaxed, happy, alive. There's increased depression with it. So it does have psychological effects. Some develop paranoia, some become anxious. Years ago, in some countries, they totally outlawed it because they thought it caused violence. But that, I don't think, has been scientifically proven. But, you know, if it alters your mind and you're taking some alcohol and some narcotic, let's face it, there's been some violence here. I'm sure some people abuse their loved one or their children or someone in the public or at a bar. So that is a little bit in dispute, but it has occurred. It does, it distorts your sense of time, space, and your perception of space and emotions differently to different people. Okay, that means keep on smoking, forget they got to go to work, we got to go home. It does stimulate the appetite, and that's a big one. I know one individual, for example, who smokes with her boyfriend, and in spite of knowing what good food is, she's gained 30 pounds. So the rate of secondary chronic disease to gaining weight, diabetes, heart attacks, strokes, go up. So the stimulation of the appetite is a big thing. Some call it eating the munchies. They can't just stop eating munchies when they're smoking marijuana. And when you're intoxicated, marijuana is difficult to learn new material. So if you're going to college, you're trying to learn something new and you're smoking marijuana, obviously that's not going to work out for you. And they have much more difficulty solving complex problems. So it definitely does affect the mind. It affects the CB cannabis B1 receptor in the brain, and the nerve conduction decreases. It does the same thing in the peripheral nerves, the nerves in the arms and legs. It does cause brainwave changes, not everyone, but they have studied it and have seen changes in the brain waves. The Association for Studying Reformation of Marijuana Laws say that you definitely should not drive if you are smoking marijuana or taking it orally, whatever. Driving is out because your sense of space, your judgment, your cognitive abilities can be affected. Different from person to person. I'm sure some people can drive with it fine, but another person may end up killing themselves or other people. And in Texas, people that were smoking marijuana, you could get it from Mexico real easy. They found an increased aggression in the people who did it, and they outlawed it because of that. But the science behind that is not totally clear. And generally, people who smoke marijuana don't have a big-time hangover. I can't totally necessarily believe that, but that's what it says in this book, which I think is fairly scientific, and we'll accept that. What about chronic use, using it a long term? Years of smoking, they have found with CT scans, MRI scans, no change in the brain structure. That's kind of interesting because we know alcohol being a toxin over many years, and being a neurosurgeon, and I've seen many MRI scans on people who drink a lot of alcohol, the brain shrinks. Oh, it's clear cut. I saw so many MRI scans where the brain shrunk and then they formed blood clots, and I had to operate them, called subdural hematomas. Dime a dozen, all every week I would do some of that. So brain atrophy is not clearly seen here. Although if you're going to gain weight because it stimulates your appetite, they have found now, a recent scientific study has proven people who are overweight, let's say obese, their brain shrinks. It's been proven. They proved it with CT and MRI scans. Yeah, I can quote the scientific paper that proved it. Something not nice to hear, but it's the truth of the matter. And partially probably because many are diabetic, and diabetics will hook proteins and sugars, and they go to the brain and cause nerve damage. A lot of dementia in type 2 diabetics. So I can understand, and I believe that. Real sensitive tests also change mental changes in people who smoke this a lot, and it's difficult for them to focus their attention. There's also increased risk of cancer from smoking marijuana because they've looked into the bronchi and they've seen the cilia, the little hairs that move the bacteria and viruses and substances along are gone. The bronchi look like skin. So that's very similar to cigarette nicotine. in the chemicals from smoking. There's about 4,000 chemicals along with a regular cigarette. And there's about 600 other chemicals with marijuana that can damage your respiratory system, and they see some precancerous activity. So there definitely will be an increased rate of cancer. I don't think quite as high perhaps as smoking, but let's face it, most people who smoke marijuana also smoke cigarettes. So it's a little difficult to study, but they have clearly shown people who smoke only marijuana that cilia go away, and that the mucosa, the membrane inside the bronchi, looks like skin. Those are precancerous findings, so you have to be concerned about that. Children who, as a teenager, start smoking marijuana and do it for a number of years, they have found changes on their CTs and MRIs, actual brain structure changes seen in those people. Something important to understand. And what they found in marijuana too, which is unassailable, that people who smoke a lot, they seem to lose a lot of jobs. They seem to work less. But you do wonder whether because they're working less, they smoke marijuana. That's been studied. But it's characteristic smoking marijuana to just lay back and be much more relaxed and not worry so much about going to work, and loss of ambition, some loss of mentation. That's been pretty clearly proven. Let's discuss the chemistry for a minute, a little bit here, the pharmacology of it. Marijuana has in it 60 chemicals that are characteristic of the marijuana itself. They're found in essentially nothing else. 60 are characteristic. It carries with it 400 other chemicals that are found in other things, just like cigarettes will carry 3,000 to 4,000, some people even think 10,000 other chemicals, many of which are carcinogenic with them. So it's the nicotine is not that damaging. It's the chemicals with the nicotine. The nicotine is just addicting, making you want more. Cannabis, which is the other name for marijuana, will alter the permeability of the nerves, the CB2 receptors in your nerves and the CB1 receptors in your brain, the ability for calcium, potassium to cause nerve conduction. And there are actual cannabis receptors in your brain and in your nerves because your body itself makes some cannabis. Your own body makes a little bit of it. You would have no receptor in your body unless you made it yourself, like morphine receptors. We have those. Your body makes a certain amount of morphine, very low amount. Your endorphins form morphine. We do have some receptors in our body, and they're much more prevalent, like the mu receptors for morphine, which we have in our own body, which Candace Pert in 1972 proved actually exists, the first one to demonstrate where drugs work, that we indeed do have some cannabis receptors. And the active part of the marijuana plant is the hydrotetra cannabinoid, okay? And that, Laennec, the famous classification guy who classified all plants, he's the one who classified that name. We'll just call it THC. And it's present in different concentrations in the part of the plant. The flower on top has a great deal of it. So let's talk about the laws a little bit. Throughout time, hundreds of years ago, it's been outlawed in certain countries, and the law was taken down, and it became somewhat illegal in the U.S. in 1937, and actually they didn't outlaw it, but you had to pay a pretty good amount of money to use it and to carry it around, like $100 an ounce, and it got too expensive for most people. So in essence, the use went way down. And now our federal laws are shaky. outlawed across the country, but they're not enforcing a lot of times if you use it for medical reasons, and that's hard to determine whether it's medical or not. It's changing all the time, but it's illegal. I mean, it's federally illegal. Certain states are loosening up the laws, about 11 states now. Colorado, I think, is the one I read in the paper all the time, loosening up the laws, and they're throwing some taxes on it. Back in history, the plant called hemp, H-E-M-P, was used for ropes. The ropes they had that we sailed across the world with was a hemp rope. Farmers had to grow hemp. If you didn't grow it, you would break the law. But there was more money to be made in tobacco, which was discovered later in history, that farmers refused many times and chose to break the law. But we had ropes, then they made it into cloth, and we were using it in soaps and in seeds. The seeds don't have much THC in it, but it does have some in it, a very low amount, but not enough to intoxicate you. So in history, made ropes out of it. They even put it in bow and arrows. So marijuana did actually kill a lot of people, although in terms of deaths from marijuana, they have been very little. But let's face it, they use it in combination with alcohol and regular cigarettes and narcotics. They're going to be deaths. But if that's the only thing you consumed, that there have been extremely few deaths from it, although it's caused plenty of devastation. So now, like in our state, they tabled to decriminalize the law, for example. But in some countries, I think Sweden, some of those countries, they decriminalized it. And they have not found that the use has increased tremendously. All the habituation, dependency, and addiction has increased somewhat. People are laying in the park smoking marijuana. So that can be a problem, and it is a problem there. People who travel those countries, we have definitely seen it. We have about 500,000 arrests for breaking marijuana laws in this country a year. Yeah, and many are in prison, some for a long period of time. So that's something to consider. Is it worth it? But it's also, stopping a lot of people from working, some becoming sick, some become dependent, some become addicted. So a lot of problems associated with it. Then you think about how much good does it do? Well, that's pretty questionable, but we'll discuss that. You say, well, we're getting money from taxes. Well, wouldn't it be a lot easier to tax fat, salt, and sugar, which is killing us, causing 80% of our diseases? Wouldn't it make sense to throw a tax on that versus this? That'd save a lot more people. Bad food is causing 80% of our chronic disease. Yeah, it's a fact. It's a fact. David Katz just published a book that proved it. I always lectured on it before because I totally believe it. So the plant itself is about 20 feet tall. It has 5 leaflets. And has a serrated border. Serrated border, so you can identify it if someone's farming it, and they shouldn't be farming it. And it has a flower on top. The flower has more of the THC in it. The female plants, the male plants, the female plants have more THC. And we, like I said, we made soaps and papers and cloths and arrows and ropes out of it. Hemp has been grown for about, the plant form of it has been grown about 8,000 years. And cotton, we started planting about 2,500 years ago. And now, and tobacco goes back about 3,000 years ago. And our colonies, our American colonies, grew it and used it for rope. But tobacco became more lucrative, so around the 1800s, and then around the 1800s, cotton replaced hemp as use of ropes and cloth, for example. But it had been used as a fabric for over 2,400 years. It goes back a long way. They even put it in some porridges and some desserts and foods. hundreds and thousands of years ago. And it was much more used in India, for example. It's about 20 to 25% protein, so it has some nutritional benefit, actually, and some calcium, some potassium. And some people use the seeds, but it has some THC in it, not a lot. They even published years ago, a few hundred years ago, a hemp seed cookbook. Yeah, would you believe it? Let's speak about the medical uses a little bit, because that's always the excuse for you to use it more, is the medical uses. I mean, does it cause dramatic savior or cure dramatically medical conditions? Very rare. There may be somebody that claims that it cured my child or this, that, and the other. Those claims, you can't argue with them about the isolated cases. What does it do? It can reduce pain a bit. Let's face it, if you're high, you probably don't hurt as much. It slows the brain down, so the seizure rate would go down. Well, we have plenty of drugs for that. Some people sleep better with it. That's understandable. It helps asthma a bit. It does cause depression in some people. It alleviates depression. It reduces nausea. It can reduce spasticity, like from MS, where I know a person in town here who is very spastic from multiple sclerosis, and his wife told me at night he'll smoke a couple to reduce spasticity. But let's face it, there are drugs that do that too. It can be used for menstrual cramps. And in some states it's much more legal than others. And it's been created in an industry now called Marinol, and that was legalized by the FDA to use it as a tablet medically for cancer. And it was a Schedule 1 on the drug schedule, but now I'm not 100% certain, but I think it's Schedule 3 I was reading, but I don't want to be quoted on that. The Chinese used it 2,000 years ago. It was an emperor, Neng, who promoted it for medicine. And if you concentrate the THC, like in India and China, they called it hashish, much more concentrated. So that's made from the flower of the plant. And this book says there have been no documented cases of fatal overdoses, but it's hard for me to believe, though, because many people use it in combination with other things. So, but again, I mean, it's Arab countries use it a lot. Linnaeus in 1753 scientifically named it cannabis sativa. That's a scientific name. 1764, the New England Journal Dispensary Journal recommended it for inflamed skin. O'Shaughnessy in 1833 studied it and said minor medical benefits. So I think if you're promoting it big time because of medical benefits, I think you're missing the boat. You're going to cause a lot more problems than you're going to solve. For one thing, those problems can be helped by medicines we got already. And in 1860, the Ohio State Medical Society approved it for pain, inflammation, cough, to increase the appetite, which it sure does. You want to be able to wait, that'll do it. And gout, insomnia. Then America passed the Tax Act in 1937. We spoke about that already. And some people in 1970 started publishing some articles that it helps glaucoma. People have eye pain from glaucoma. But there are drugs that work plenty good for that. But I'm not saying medically, if that's the only reason you used it, I think maybe it's okay. And so, like I said, it's now artificial made called Marinol or Dronabinol, a synthetic version of THC, and that's what they tend to use medically when it's prescribed. But it's a mind-altering drug. You got to remember, it's a mind-altering drug. Alcohol came along in 6,400 before BC, but marijuana 8,000 BC, and now they have a concentrated form, hashish, and it's the resin, it's the liquid. Matter of fact, they found if a person ran naked through the fields of marijuana, they pick up a lot of the resin off the skin, and then they take it off the skin, and they have hashish. Yeah, kind of interesting story. In 1798, Napoleon outlawed it. He outlawed it, and you suspect he outlawed it because he saw some problems. And so let's speak a little bit about use, about habituation, dependency, addiction. These terms are intermingled a bit. The American Psychiatric Association does not use the word addiction any longer. The World Health Organization doesn't use it any longer. They use the word dependency, okay? But the word addiction is still used, especially in this country. And generally, how you determine whether you're addicted or not is to have about 3 or 4 of these, that you're preoccupied with the substance. You're thinking about it through the day. Some compulsive use, you feel like you got to use it. That you have frequent relapses. You try to stop, man, you got to start again. That you have some withdrawal symptoms as it's leaving the body. That you develop tolerance. You got to use more over time, increasing dosage. That you're preoccupied with it, thinking about it, and that you're willing to commit some illegal act to get it. Steal it from somebody, or hide it, or your grandma's house, or whatever. You take their drug or something. 3 or 4 of those, you'd be called addicted to the substance. That's the definition of addiction. Then let's speak about a little bit. So they judge it in terms of medical problems and social problems. The current definitions really depend on your behavior. Dependency. Suppose am I dependent on it? If you have 3 of these 7, then you be dependent on it. Again, that you're developing tolerance, you got to increase the dose. You get some withdrawal symptoms. You're using more than you intended. You plan to have only 1 smoke that night, but you get 2 or 3 instead. Multiple attempts to stop it isn't working. You have loss of time relative to its use. You're not getting to work or whatever. You're starting to have problems at work, and yet you continue to use it despite having problems in your life. So you get 3 or 4 of those, you could be called dependent. It's very close to being addicted. What about abusing it? I mean, a lot of people abuse it. So it's one of those 3. If you have 1 of these 4, so it interferes with your major obligations, that you're intoxicated, and have some legal problems. You know, you get a fine, you're driving, you're having problems at work, you have continued problems from using it. 1 of those 4, you could be called an abuser of marijuana. So again, as I mentioned already, driving after smoking is unacceptable. And that was said so by the National Organization for Reform of Marijuana Laws. Marijuana laws, you know, they're probably a little bit, want to change the laws, but they might even be a little bit favorable to that group. But they say, you don't drive, you had a smoke. And federal laws change all the time. I'm not saying what the law is. I know it's the federal laws, frankly, which are not enforced a lot, but the sentences can be major. So what are the statistics now? About 23% of the people smoking marijuana abuse it. 6% are dependent on it, okay? Close to addiction. 15% who smoke regularly have some problem, have some social problem, medical problem. About 9% who've been smoking for 5 years clearly have problems in their life. So in the world, maybe with 200 to 300 million people, regular users. 1/3 of Americans have tried it. Less than 5% of the Americans use it regularly. As I mentioned, the World Health Organization, the American Psychiatric Association, they don't use the word addiction anymore. They use dependency on it, which is kind of interesting. And it's been used a lot under different names in India. And they'll combine it with milk, and it's called BHANG. Then the top of the plant is much stronger, called hashish or ganza, GANZA. but the use in the world, you know, it's the most abused illegal drug that there is. And the potency is variable. You know, hashish, 20 to 50% THC, okay? The oil of it, 70% THC. Remember I said about the resin of the plant, okay? And it's been used in shampoo, soaps, clothing, and 30% of the potency is lost in smoke. But remember what I said. And people do eat, some people eat marijuana, but it takes slower to get the effect. So people like to smoke it because if you're smoking, it heads to the bloodstream, to the brain, you know, very quickly. How soon does it leave the bloodstream? 1 to 6 hours after eating it, okay? Intravenous use, the effects are quickly, but also it leaves the body quickly, okay? And so it can last for days. It'll store it in your fat, and it can even be found there a month later. So if you get, you know, you're at work and they do drug testing and they catch that on you, I mean, it's a problem. It could be there for days or weeks, and people do all sorts of contortions to avoid not flunking that test. Oh yeah, they'll do things to the urine and things. I know, I've been at factories and review that, and it'd be horrible, you know, to lose your job or something that is very limited benefit. So some people take 28 hours to get a bloodstream. Naive users, 57 hours. It's stored in the fat in the body, okay? More fat you get, more likely you retain it for a long period of time. And we spoke to, and what they're thinking is that it inhibits the AMP, the adenosine monophosphate in the nerve impulses, the nerve conduction in the nerves and in your brain. The AMP is that it inhibits your AMP, so it can affect how quickly you think, how quickly you can react. I suspect they have an increased rate of falls, for example, and defining that further and further. You have more marijuana receptors in your body than morphine receptors. Remember, your body makes your own endorphins, your own morphine. Candace Pert described that in 1972. She almost got the Nobel Prize for that. And it does affect your memory. Usually transiently, but over time, that can change. And so let's review the health effects again a little bit here. So there's usually a temporary change in your response time. It does affect your sperm count. Yes. So it affects sexuality. It may make you more hypersexual for a few seconds, but it will inhibit the sperm count and the egg count. Yeah, so it affects that. And as I already mentioned, usually there's no clear change on the MRI or CT, except ones that where children start smoking and continue, that they've changed, definitely seen changes. And there's increased rate of bronchitis and coughing in marijuana smokers. And remember, it kills the cilia, and so we increased cancer rate, maybe not quite as high as cigarette smoking, but most, I said, do both. So many of them have chronic inflammation, and it affects the vascular system too. You know, inflammation can lead to heart disease, lung disease, okay? And we mentioned the 400 chemicals that are carried with the plant, maybe 4,000 or so in cigarettes, maybe 10,000 cigarettes, no one knows for sure. And some people think with it you have an increased rate of schizophrenia, mental problems. Some things people think it helps that a little bit. And so that's of great concern. What about treatment? What about treatment for it? And remember what I said, some people are habituated to it, some people are tolerant of it, some people are addicted to it. Cognitive behavioral therapy has been used where they talk to you about your thoughts and your feelings and why you're doing this. Is this as a response to problems in your life, or is it causing problems in your life? And many times You know, it's both. And this is a no judgment zone. This is an informational show. I'm not making any judgment here because many of us have different problems, and some problems I see in patients, I don't know how they take it. And so this is, you know, they're traveling down here. They just want to come up and just feel good for a day. So this is a no judgment zone, judgment zone. And so a good 10% definitely have a problem with it. If you have full-time treatment, I tell you at best 15% are cured in a year. So you see my problem? You're just adding to your problems. After 1 year of counseling or trying to stop yourself, maybe 15% kick the habit in a year. Another interesting thing is many of these patients have bad teeth. Yeah, as long as, of course, with other drugs. You see that with other drugs. But marijuana can affect your teeth too, probably from vasospasm, inflammation, who knows. And there's some other books written about there. That the Life of Marijuana is a book out there. And to read books on addiction, cigarette smoking, and marijuana all around probably is a good idea. Another method of treatment is called motivational interviewing, where they try to increase your motivation steps to get you to change. Some will even tie it to religion, like the Daniel Plan in eating. Take advantage, if you have faith, for example, that like the Daniel Plan, where would be faith, food, fitness, focus, and friends, a method of motivating you to change. Well, this would be on the list. I mean, good health starts with fingers, whether you're smoking, marijuana could be one, cigarettes another, taking drugs another. Oh, okay. Forks, what you eat, pretty important. You can avoid 80% of chronic illnesses if you eat the right food. Wow, that's true. I've always taught it. David Katz's book just came out recently, Disease Proof Your Health. He confirms what I've been saying. I mean, what a statistic, that is, and to use friends, So the gasoline here, frankly, is faith and friends, because the way I see it, and the way many people see it, and some don't see it, is that you were given a body. You were given a body by whatever you believe in. Okay, you were nature, or God, or Jesus, whatever you believe in, Muhammad, whatever, gave you your body. You got to pay some attention to that. Maybe someday you got to account for it. And that can be a motivating factor to change your habits. And in motivational interviewing, I mean, the stages of change. Pre-contemplation, you decided to change, but then you decided, well, I'm going to do it, and then become determined to do it, and then you take some action, and then you may have a relapse. I would look at a relapse as a learning thing. Don't feel guilty and beat yourself up. That has no value. That has no value. I'm not perfect. Who in the heck's perfect? We all made mistakes. So if you get a relapse, you just start over, try to educate yourself, gather a lot of information. So I suggest reading about things and looking at some of my CDs, DVDs, and shows on YouTube or other books you can get online, or Amazon, or at the library, like I'm here, this great library, I'm right here. So gather information, but that's very helpful. But information is not power. You must participate in your health care. You got to participate in your health care. That's power. Once you start doing things, and many of us need some help. A friend is a good thing, or a group. Some people go into group therapy or just a friendship. I was reading today that if a person is overweight, and their friend is overweight, they have a 50% chance of having of getting more overweight if you have an overweight friend. Okay, suppose you had a healthy friend, you get a great chance of getting rid of your weight if you wish to. If you have a very close friend, and your best and very close friend has the same habit, also smokes or is also overweight, whatever the habit is you're trying to get rid of, the chances of you becoming worse is 177%. That's been scientifically studied. That's kind of scary, you know. Remember, this is a no judgment zone. Man, we've all got a habit we'd like to get rid of, and I'm just trying to pass out information. I think we've covered this subject fairly well. Let's speak a little bit here about other habits that accompany marijuana smoking, and what did I really try to say with this information? I mean, you really got to look at it, maybe read more about it, and you realize there isn't a lot of benefit. What's the benefit? I mean, it's minimal. Any one person may claim this, it saved my child, or it saved me, or whatever, or it takes away all my pain. Well, maybe that's true, or maybe it's not. Big studies don't support that, and I don't deny that, okay? What I'm saying is there is not a lot of benefit from doing this, okay? So I suggest you don't bother with it. I must be very proud of many things the legislature has done, which I don't agree with, like they didn't approve the Medicaid thing. We could have 400,000 people under insurance. I mean, a lot of things they've done I don't agree with, but I agree with this decision when they tabled the marijuana laws in this state. There's not a lot of benefit, and maybe what I'd rather have them do is to do a little more teaching, more informational, so the problems that it could produce. And if you're looking for tax money, tax fat, salt, and sugar, that would save a lot of people's lives. They did in Mexico. Yeah, in January they did it. And 10% tax on fast food, 8% on sugar, I think. And they found that people are drinking much less sugary drinks, which is 50% of obesity. So there are different ways to raise money, and the benefits are few. And you clearly already have the law covering the cancer patients a bit, which I agree with. So I think the legislature got it right. But what about if you're smoking cigarettes? We're down to about 20% of the people smoking cigarettes. The trouble with that is it's the chemicals with the nicotine, okay? And the other 20% that's left, the main reason many of them don't want to change or can't change, let's say I think most of them would want to change, it can't change, is that indeed they're addicted. Nicotine is very, very addictive, and they have fear. They have fear. What many don't realize, and I like to say today, is that withdrawal from nicotine is not like withdrawing from cocaine or other narcotics. It's nowhere near as difficult. Most people are over it in a week. They might, out of habit, want to smoke again, but the withdrawal process is pretty darn quick. So, and many live in fear, and you can get help. Generally, I'd recommend that you get ready, pick the day, and just stop. But there are people who are helped by reducing it. Every week a little less, a little less. The darn trouble is when you're smoking a little less, you're not really smoking a little less. You're just taking deeper breaths and trying to keep your blood level up. Yeah, I've read that. And to use some substitutes today, patches and things, I think that's fine. Some people use gums or whatever. Don't take up cigar smoking. You say, well, I don't inhale. People think that's a nice sport, but I tell you, one big cigar is like smoking a pack of cigarettes. Yeah, one big cigar is like smoking a pack of cigarettes because of smoke around you. You may not think you're inhaling it, but you're inhaling. So another nasty habit, and just gathering information. What is it doing to my life? I mean, It's affecting your family, your friends. It's socially totally unacceptable today. Employers, when they're interviewing you, are trying to, they may not be allowed to pull a blood level on you, but they're looking you over to see if you might be a smoker. A lot of times you can tell in the skin because the chemicals cause vasoconstriction of the microvasculature, and you look older than you really are. Most people, 20 years. That doesn't happen at age 15, but most of the time I can tell who's smoking. We all can. You can just by looking at them. So employers are looking for this, although they can't legally, I believe most places test for it, unless you're working in a place where smoking would really be a problem to the company. And the smells in your house, it's destroying the house. If you're smoking around the children, if you're smoking, for example, and you're pregnant, I mean, what you're doing to your child, this child's going to be smaller and maybe nicotine addicted. It probably is time it's born. Same with taking narcotics. I heard the other day, which is hard to believe, but I have to accept it, that 75% of women today are on some kind of a pain pill. I hope not to, that's true, but it came from a government stat. And I like to say a little something about it. Don't accept, speak about this a minute in addiction, don't accept a narcotic prescription for pain unless you have clear-cut problem, like a kidney stone. You can even take Toradol for that. You don't need a narcotic. You get a broken leg or something severe happened, a ruptured bowel or something, but it has an end point, and you know the end point. A week or two, a month, you can become addicted to it very rapidly. You have pain, it's real to you, pain is real, but now you're becoming habituated, dependent, or addicted, and they keep on, they're ill to the pill. They keep on writing you prescriptions, but 2 months later, you're living off narcotic medications. In my practice of neurosurgery, I saw it so much that maybe the main reason that after 44 years I stopped my neurosurgery. That's the only thing I don't miss. Trying to argue with somebody dependent or addicted to narcotics, it's an argument. It's impossible to win. They would just leave. They would leave mad, and then they'll go to the emergency room and they'll give them a 3-day supply, and they don't say, "Well, why do you hurt?" "Well, I hurt." Well, we don't know why you hurt. And if we don't know why you hurt, we ought not be writing the script. Personally, myself, I think we should redefine pain. It's a 0 to 10. You go to the emergency room and they say, well, what's the level of your pain? It's a 9, and they get the dilated drip going. To me, that's an error. That's an error. You ought to know why you hurt. To give it for a short period of time, if you've never been on it before, okay. Give you a week to figure out what it is. But after that, don't use addictive medications. Because once you're addicted, your life is ruined. It is ruined. Many times then they go to a pain center. The narcotic laws are so complex now for pain. A law passed last year, and beginning of this year. A good attempt, trying to be helpful, but it's so complex that the family doctor is giving up. I mean, it's 100 pages long, and you got to go through so many things that so complex, tests you got to take, things he's got to do, and that he's handing it to the pain center. Many pain centers are quite good, but there's a number of them too who don't understand pain, and they just renew your prescription. Then they want to put needles in you, and once you get the needles in you, they hand you another script. Of course, that'll make sure you come back because you need a refill. You see the problem? So I wrote a number of books there on Amazon. Pain, we need a new definition. It needs to be redefined, I think, as to what narcotics. The thing is, the problem is narcotics don't work after 6 months of use. Chronic pain does not help by narcotics. Barry Miller wrote a book on that. Painkillers, New York Times reporter, great book. When I got in the mail, I spent all night reading it. It was that good. And saying that Portnoy admitted, who had promoted giving narcotics for chronic pain, not just for cancer. He was head of the National Pain Society. He promoted the use of OxyContin and drugs of this nature, and it went all over the country. The whole darn country almost became addicted. Pain centers everywhere. Has it slowed down a lot? Well, some states have gotten tougher. Florida is tougher. Kentucky is a little bit tougher. But I noticed in the newspaper recently an article written by our health commissioner of this county, again reiterating the high addiction rate, especially in this area. So the laws, I realize it's been on the books only a short period of time, but the biggest thing is don't accept a narcotic, don't accept addictive substances in the first place, unless it's going to save your life. That's a big point. That's a big point. Try to get away from so much medication. I saw so many patients in my practice, on 15 pills and 85 years old. Let's find it. Some of those may be indicated, but let's be careful. It shouldn't be pill to the ill. How about a little talk? How about a little massage? How about a little exercise? If it's life-saving, for Pete's sake, take it. Marijuana, is it life-saving? I mean, it'd be extremely rare. The circumstances that I could think of. Matter of fact, I couldn't even think of one. To me, that's just my own personal opinion. Don't get started with it. I get a different habit. You need to bring some joy in your life. Let's bring some joy into our life. Exercising regularly would be a good one. Well, I can't move, doctor. Well, dance in place. Dance in place. I was in Dancing with the Stars a few years ago. And you know what happened after that? I couldn't stop dancing. I was doing something else, and I was always dancing. It got to be a habit. That's really what happened. So dancing and music, a great exercise, good for your mind. Watch funny movies. Norman Cousins, wrote a book on that. He had cancer and arthritis. He would watch a movie for an hour, and he'd feel great for 4 hours because his own neuropeptides, his own hormones in his body, which affected the rest of the body, made him feel good. Yeah, there's something called a Duchenne smile. Yes. Smile. Although you don't feel like smiling, that'll cause secretion of neuropeptides, hormones, neurotransmitters in your body. And they go to the receptor sites all over your body and make you feel good. Yeah, I thought that was a good one. So every hour, spend a second, put a smile out there. Or when I get in a car after a stressful day, I'll turn on the radio right away. And one of my friends was driving behind me. He said, "Oh, Cashin, what are you doing?" Because I was waving an arm. I was conducting to the music after leaving a very stressful situation. You can imagine, as a neurosurgeon, you mean it's like a stock market. It's up and down. I cure somebody, then a serious injury, then, oh no, your boy's going to die. Oh, I cured your son of a brain tumor. I mean, that's the way the day is. So you can imagine it's up and down, and many people, lives are like that, especially women. They have 3, 4, 5 kids. They don't control the purse. They get to work too, and the husband comes home when he wants dinner ready. Do you think women aren't more stressed than men? You're wrong. Women are 10 times on the average more stressed out than men are. It's not their fault. It's just their life. But so you have to learn things in your life to deal with stress, so you don't end up smoking to relieve stress, marijuana to relieve stress, alcohol to relieve stress. Figure a better way, from exercise to music to doing puzzles. What the exercise you're most likely to do, or has most benefit to you? The one that you like to do. Could be anything. I took up pickleball recently besides tennis. Hey, that's a good one. If you can't move quite as good as on a tennis court, take up pickleball. It's a lot of exercise, and you can go YouTube pickleball and it'll show you how to do it. Or call me, I'll teach it to you. You know what I did? I signed up for a tournament about a month before the tournament. Never played in my life, and that motivated me to learn how to do it. And I did enter the tournament. I got eliminated the first round, but I could care less. Now I know how to play it. I know the rules. So I know of a person that's around 50 years old who promised their kids that every year she was going to take up something new, a new sport, from one thing to another. Maybe it'd be handball or racquetball or ping pong. Take up something new. It's good for the mind. You don't want to just exercise your body. You want to exercise your brain. when exercise your brain. That's important. Through reading or puzzles or whatever. I had an aunt who lived till age 86, I think, perfect memory. And she was playing cards and doing puzzles every day. So she exercised, okay? I think developing a sense of humor, which some are better at than others, and watching funny movies, and just having a sense of community in the family. When you're eating, for example, try to eat as a family, everybody around the table. They're going to eat better, they're going to share their problems with you, and you're going to have a better family if you can do that. As a neurosurgeon, I didn't always have time to do that, although sometimes that's an excuse. I noticed Dr. Hyman, who wrote Blood Sugar Solutions, Dr. Hyman, a very good book on proper eating. His family would never start dinner till he was in the house. Interesting. So he learned to cook himself. So if you're having a problem with the food you're eating and maybe you're having a weight problem or something, I highly recommend learning to cook. I'm slowly getting into it. I think it's a great thing. Dr. Hyman can prepare a chicken dinner for 4 and 12 minutes at a cost of $15. Yeah, that's right in his book. Right in his book. So don't try to tell me that healthy food is more expensive than bad food. It's not true. It's been studied. Dr. David Katz studied it. It's a wash. You just got to learn to shop properly and in season, maybe freeze it a little bit, and you got to become knowledgeable and develop techniques. There are very good recipes out there for healthy food that in the end. And when Dr. Katz wrote this book, which I totally agree with, a great book. He was the last speaker at the National Wellness Conference in Minnesota recently, that 80% of all chronic disease can be avoided by good health habits. Wow, that's just marvelous. I hope some of you read his book. So sort of in summary here, I'm trying to educate you. Knowledge is important and it's helpful. You probably need some more knowledge than this, but the biggest reason that indeed we smoke is just to feel better. We're traveling down here, we've had a tough day, but I say get better habits to relieve your stress than to using cigarettes or alcohol or marijuana. So I'm trying to build your knowledge of it, because it interferes with your memory, with your ambition. You want to lose your job, you want to lose your ambition, try smoking marijuana. It impairs memory, spatial thinking, coordination. Some people it causes depression, and it can cause some brain damage, more than if you started as a child. But the long-term studies aren't out there. It does have a cancer rate attached to it, some vascular rate attached to it, and it causes obesity, and of course with that will come a whole host of chronic diseases of diabetes, hypertension, strokes, dementia, a life of misery. So try to develop some good health habits. How you think is everything, and you have trouble changing your habits. I read a book called The Daniel Plan. I realize it's partly religious. I personally am a spiritual person, but not obsessed about it. But I think it's an excellent way of causing change in yourself, in your habits. Also, they have a great website, Daniel Pan website. Look at Cashman website, my YouTube lectures. And thanks so much for listening to me. I'm Dr. Wellness, the mayor of the city. Called me Dr. Wellness at his press conference the other day, and I was highly complimented over that, because that's what I'm trying to do. I do this because I love you. Because I love you, I care for people. Physician means teacher. I'm trying to be a teacher. And I hope you watch some of our other shows and come to my lectures. Send us your email. I think that's a big one, so that we can contact you when we give our talks. Thanks very much. Namaste.